guys. How is everyone? I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. I did. I watched movies. I watched fireworks on the TV from Disney. We went to see Jurassic World Rebirth. Excellent, excellent movie. I highly recommend it. Let's see what Judy has for us today. She has some trivia about Ryan Cooper, the deceased in this trial. He graduated from North Tama High School in 1998. Ryan liked cheering for the Iowa State Cyclones. He frequently rode snowmobile trails and treated his family to summer trips to Wisconsin. He loved to jet ski and boat ride with his kids at the Lake of the Ozarks. Hey, Carla. Hey, Terry. Hey, Judy. How is everybody doing this morning? Thank you so much, Judy, for putting my links up there. Please become a member, guys. It's not expensive. It's 99 cents. And my Cash App and my Venmo links are there if you don't want YouTube to take a bite. If you want to donate some money to me, I appreciate it very much. I've got some new stuff coming up for y'all. For members, I'm gonna be hopefully gonna be doing some different stuff that I'm gonna have some new members only content. So 99 cents. I'm gonna be doing some fun stuff for you guys. So we are on day 3. By the way, I'm Debbie. Welcome to my channel if you've never been here before. And welcome all my lurkers and replay crew. Love you guys. You are loved and appreciated very much. We are watching the Widow's Words murder trial. Iowa v. Karina Cooper. This is day 3. I already have the afternoon set up, so whenever we break for lunch, it will redirect you there. So they just started a few minutes ago. So let's jump over there and see what is happening. I need Pepsi. I already had coffee. No, StreamYard. I just cleaned my computer. Stop it. Like a little boy kind of way.
All right. We are back on the record. We have our jurors and counsel and parties present. Jurors, I hope you all had a good 4th of July and a good long weekend, and welcome back. You may recall that on Friday we left a little bit early and we had finished with the testimony of, I believe, DCI agent Ryan Herman, and we heard some videos, and we had finished with that witness. I believe we are now ready for the state's next. Mr. Kodiaga, do you have another witness to call?
Thank you, Judge. The state calls DCI agent John to the stand.
All right. Sir, I'll have you come on up and just take a seat to my far left, if you would. And I'll swear you in once you're seated. And yeah, you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. All right, please raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And sir, for the record, can you please provide us with your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
John Turbot, that's Jon, and the last name is Turbitt.
All right, Mr. Kodiaga.
I missed it. I couldn't hear him.
Thank you, Judge. So, you've stated your name. How are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Iowa Department of Public
Mic
Safety,
isn't on.
specifically their Division of Criminal Investigation, or we call it.
Turn your mic on.
How long have you been with this division of criminal safety?
I'm just beginning my 26th year.
Can you tell us your education and training to be in this position?
I have a 4-year Bachelor of Arts degree from Coe College in Political Science, and I have a law degree from the University of Iowa College of Law, and then I attended a 19-week police academy for the state before becoming a sworn officer.
Are you therefore a peace officer in the state of Iowa?
Yes.
We've talked about DCI to this jury, but there's some people who may not know what DCI really is. Can you just briefly tell us what DCI is in relation to other police departments in the state of Iowa?
Yes. We're oftentimes described as a rural law enforcement kind of assistance agency. So local police departments, sheriff's offices are able to call us 24/7, and we would dispatch detectives, police officers, to assist local agents.
Agent, are they involving homicides or major crimes?
Yes.
What's your experience in that?
Basically, my entire career, I was working death investigations or homicides within my first year. I've continued to do that, probably with increasing frequency. It's now a pretty significant part of what I do.
So were you involved in the investigation of the death of Karina Cooper that brings us into this courtroom today?
Yes.
How did you become involved in this investigation?
I actually became involved several years after Ryan's murder in 2023. I was asked by my colleagues to assist with a review and then specifically some interviews.
So, to say that your specific role was more of interviewing witnesses?
Yes, I think all that I did in this case was interviewing the defendant and several witnesses.
You talked about interviewing the defendant. Did you identify, can you identify the person, is that person Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you identify her in this courtroom?
Yes.
Will you please go ahead and do that? You want to make the record reflect identification by the gesture of the hand?
The record so reflects.
Now, you talked about in the course of that investigation, you interviewed witnesses, including the defendant, Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember the day that you conducted the interview with Karina Cooper?
Yes, that was May 4th, 2023.
Do you remember where you conducted the interview?
Yes, I was instructed the interview would take place at 1846 K Avenue in Traer, which I understood to be the scene of the murder as well.
That's the residence where the defendant lived at.
At one time, yes.
When you're doing this interview in 2023, Ryan Cooper was killed in 2021. Is that a fair?
Yes, I believe June 18th, 2021.
And what was the purpose of the interview that you're doing in 2023?
A couple of things were discussed. We wanted to see if the defendant would hold to the same positions that she had several years prior, but also when we reviewed that, we just decided that it would be good to explore for more depth and more detail as well than what we had from a few years prior.
Was your interview, when you take the interview, were you just with the defendant and you at that point?
Was it just the two of us?
Yes.
Yes, ultimately, when I first arrived, Ryan's brother Aaron was also present, and I met the two of them on the driveway. I spent a little bit of time with Aaron. He toured me through the home so I could see where things had occurred. And then shortly after that, I met with the defendant, and it was just she and I at that point.
When you interview the defendant, do you ask her to tell you everything in detail about what happened and the nature of her relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Part of that is, do you also want to know everything and have a know that nothing should be left out?
Yes, so an extremely important part of the interview would be to explain I'm interested in every detail, even things that people might think are not so important. So I will give examples like every conversation or every meal or even what you ate for a meal or what were you watching on TV. I tell them no details too small because we're very interested of what people are willing to share or not willing to share. We really are just probing for as much detail as possible in those interviews.
Did you ask her to give you an account of what happened that night?
Yes.
Starting from earlier evening, did you ask her to tell you what happened?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
So the evening prior to the murder, she says that the family had gone to a baseball game. They had come home, I believe, around 8 p.m., had pizza. They'd cleaned up and showered. And then she said really from that point on, it was an uneventful evening. The children went to bed. She ends up in what they would call the master bedroom, I guess, in bed with two of the children. Ryan goes to sleep in his recliner, as was the norm for some time, and then she said that Cade had slept upstairs.
So you understood there were three children. One was called Cade, who was sleeping upstairs, and she was sleeping with two other children in the bedroom.
Yes, Cade would be the oldest, and she told me he was sleeping upstairs, and then the two younger, Cable and Cortland, would have been sleeping in the bed with her.
As you talked to her, did she report waking up during the night?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about waking up during the night?
She said the first time she woke, there was no particular reason other than that was the norm. Her body was kind of on that cycle, her bladder, and so she would normally wake between 2 and 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And so she said at 3 a.m. she woke simply to go to the bathroom.
Did she tell you what her perception or observations of Ryan Cooper were at 3 a.m. when she went to the bathroom?
Yes, she reported that he was snoring and the TV was on, and so she went to the bathroom and just went back to bed.
So the TV was on and Ryan Cooper was snoring?
Yes.
On the recliner?
Yes.
Did she tell you what happened next?
She said she did fall back to sleep. She thought it was for a short period of time, and the next time that she woke was not for her bladder, but because she heard a crash.
Did she tell you what her thinking was in regards to the crash that she heard?
Yes, she said that she'd immediately assessed that as the shower caddy falling in the bathroom that was right next to the bedroom, and so she got up immediately to investigate.
How did she describe her getting up immediately to go investigate? What happened in that process?
She said she got out of the bed immediately and then had tripped over, they have a large dog, Ransom. She described him as a 100-pound Rottweiler. He was asleep at the foot of the bed, and so as she got out of the bed and made her way to the bathroom, she had tripped over the dog and then gone on to the bathroom.
Did she tell you if the dog made any noise?
She said the dog had made a woof, like a small noise like that.
When she tripped over the dog?
Yes, I think she was saying either when she tripped on it or right before she tripped on it, perhaps as if he'd perceived the noise but didn't get up, or when she tripped on him. Right in that all happened in a short time frame.
According to her account, she tells you she goes to the bathroom?
Yes.
Then what did she tell you she does next?
She sees nothing in the bathroom, so she's there, very quickly, and then she moves on to the kitchen and sees nothing in the kitchen. And she describes, and we talk about for a little bit, her assessment. She looks out through the kitchen window into the well-lit driveway area, and she doesn't see any vehicles or any people in the kitchen or outside in the driveway area.
She describes the driveway as well lit.
Yes.
Once she looks outside the driveway and sees nothing or no vehicles or nobody, what does she do next?
She then moves on to the living room.
What does she say to you that she sees or does when she gets to the living room?
Her first perceptions that she described were the TV is now not on like it was now in sleep mode, so it had gone to sleep. And she goes over and turns on a lamp.
So now the TV is off
Yes,
and she turns on a lamp in the living room.
yes.
What does she tell you she sees or observes when she turns on the lamp in the living room?
So Ryan was still in his recliner. She turns the lamp on and she says, I see blood, lots of blood.
What does she describe that she does next once she sees lots of blood?
She begins screaming, and then she very quickly moves towards the stairs to go get Cade or intercept Cade as he's coming down the stairs.
So she tells you she runs upstairs to get Cade,
Yes.
who was the son who was sleeping upstairs.
Yes, that would be the oldest son that she said was sleeping upstairs.
Does she tell you the reason why she wants to get Cade?
I believe she says she doesn't want him to see things, so she tries to get him, on the stairs or upstairs and whisk him into the bedroom with the other two children and close him into that area so he doesn't see things or perceive things, I think.
She wants to lock him with the other kids in the bedroom.
Yes, so he can't see what's going on.
Now you talked about the dog, Ransom, and you described him that she told you is like 100-pound Rottweiler. Did she tell you how the dog typically behaved with strangers?
Yes, my recollection is she described him as this 100-pound Rottweiler. He was interested in people, seemed to be very much a family dog. We were kind of comparing notes. I mentioned my dog. So for instance, she would talk about him spending time. He would roam the house at night and check in on the various family members, but interested in the family and people as they came.
Did she tell you he will typically bark at strangers?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
That Ransom will typically bark at strangers?
Yes.
You talked about his nighttime behavior. She described as a dog who would roam through the different rooms in the house.
Yes, she said that Ransom would roam. Sometimes he would spend time with Ryan out in the living room and sleep there for a while. He would sometimes go upstairs to see Cade or sleep up there a little bit, and then of course he would sleep in the bedroom as he was that night, she reported, when she tripped on him.
In fact, when you're discussing this, does she tell you about her bedroom door, whether it was open or closed, in relation to Ransom's behavior?
Yeah, I think in her description of the dog and his activities, I asked her, it occurred to me to ask, and I asked about the door, and she said the door was left open that night. It was at least partially open, so this large dog could come and go through the doorway as he pleased, since he was a roamer.
Let's talk about firearms. Did the question of firearms come up in the interview with the defendant?
I recall we had quite a length of firearms.
Did you and her discuss the firearms that would have been either in the house or close to the house?
Yes, I think I made a couple of attempts to try to cover this well. I talked about guns she possessed, that Ryan possessed, guns that were in the house, other places they kept guns. Tried to have that conversation several different ways.
Did you learn that there was a firearm in the bedroom that she was
Yes.
sleeping in?
Yes.
Do you remember what firearm it would have been?
She described it as a .380.
So a .380 caliber handgun?
Yes.
Did she talk to you about Ryan teaching her how to use firearms?
She said that the .380 that she said was in the bedroom in a lockbox had been given to her by Ryan, and that they had sat on the couch and he had demonstrated where the safety was, how to take a magazine in and out. But that was the extent of the instruction that he provided her at that time.
As you talked to her about firearms, did you get to learn that she'd used firearms before?
Yes.
She tell you what kind of guns she'd shot before?
She said she'd shot shotgun in high school, but she had never shot a handgun.
When you talk, do you have a discussion about the house, in particular, the entry points in the house, and how visitors will come and go, or how people could come and go in this house?
Yes, having walked the house just shortly before that with Aaron, I tried to make sure I understood how people came and went from the house.
Can you tell the jury what you learned from that conversation?
Yeah, my understanding was, in speaking to Karina, there were only 2 entry points into the house. There was a door in the kitchen that was most typically used, really always used by people to come and go from the house. And there was a door that led to the outside that was in the living room where Ryan had been murdered, but that was rarely used.
Fact, did you learn that only a stranger would use the living room door?
She specifically told me that, and we went over that several times, that the kitchen door was the door that everyone came and went from, and if someone had utilized the living room door, she told me that would be someone who had never been to the house. It would be a stranger.
Did you ask her about her observations of the living room door that night that Ryan was killed?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me she thought the door was closed because if it had been open, she would have remembered that.
In fact, when she talks to you about that living room door, does she tell you the proximity or dimensions with it in regards to Ryan's recliner and where Ryan was found dead?
Yes, the recliner she described blocked that door for the most part and made its use difficult. You couldn't really open and close it well. Particularly, I think she said if Ryan was in the chair or someone was in the chair and it was reclined, it made that door even more unusable.
So she stated it would have obstructed, the recliner would have obstructed
Yes.
the door if it were to be opened with Ryan sleeping on it.
Yes.
Talk about sleeping arrangements. Interested in asking her about where Kate slept and what his sleeping arrangements were.
Yes, I was very interested in that.
As you talk to her about this, what does she tell you?
So she told me that on that night, Kate had slept upstairs, and so that began a conversation where I tried to understand if that was normal for Kate to sleep upstairs or abnormal if he normally slept somewhere else.
What did you learn from her?
So historically, Cade had spent quite a bit of time actually sleeping down in the living room. She said that he would watch movies with his dad and fall asleep on the couch by his dad. And there'd been attempts over the years to try and get him to sleep in his own bed upstairs.
Did you ask her about her having a conversation with Cade a couple of days before Ryan's death, where she wanted Cade to go upstairs?
Yes, it was my understanding that there may have been a change in his sleeping arrangement within days of Ryan's murder, so I asked if she had specifically, or if someone had specifically had Cade sleep in his bedroom of, you know.
We need to take up.
StreamYard was perfect Thursday, and I was so happy. And then today, when I pulled it up to start getting ready for the streams, they added a whole bunch of new crap. So, of course, it's not going to work for what we need it to do because they added a whole bunch of new crap that I don't need, and it's screwing us up.
And we'll have you back in here shortly. So, thank you. Agent Turbo, you could go ahead and have a seat somewhere else if you'd like for a minute.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we are back on the record outside the Agent Turbo. I'm sorry, we don't need to leave. Just mean you didn't need to stay in the witness box. Sorry. You maybe have a seat behind counsel. All right. Anyway, we're outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper here. Towards the end there, right before we excuse the jury, Ms. Watt asked to approach, and Ms. Watt is objecting to Mr. Turbitt's use of the word murder on several occasions. My understanding is the state does not object to that. Is that correct, Mr. Kodiaga?
That's correct, Judge.
All right, so Agent Turbitt, I would just ask and instruct you that when you're referring to Mr. Cooper's death from this point, don't use that word. All right. That satisfy you, Ms. Watt?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any further record you wish to make, Ms. Watt?
No.
Any further record you wish to make, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then why don't we all take, since we're at a little break, anybody need anything, or are you guys good to go?
I'm good.
You're good? Mr. Ringel, Mr. Kodiaga, are you good? Or do you need a little break? 5 minutes? All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
They had to send the jury out for that? They couldn't have just brought him up to the bench and told him quit saying murder. That's stupid. You guys are quiet today. Why are you guys so quiet today?
All right. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience, members of the jury. So we're back on the record. We have our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And Agent Turbot, if you want to come back on up to the stand, sir. And Agent Turbot, I would just remind you, even though we took a short break, that you're still under oath. And with that, Mr. Kodiaga, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Judge. You're talking about discussions that she had with you about Cade sleeping upstairs in the days leading to Ryan's killing, correct?
Wait a minute. Isn't their position that Houston murdered him? So that would still make it a murder. So shouldn't it be called a murder? If they're trying to say she's innocent because Houston did it, it should still be, they should still be calling it a murder, right? So that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
And at some point in your questioning, did you ask her if there was a conversation that she would have had with Cade about going to sleep upstairs?
Yes.
During that conversation, did she tell you that she probably could have had that conversation and told him to go sleep upstairs?
At one point, she said she probably did, and then she said, yeah, it was likely that that had happened.
Do you discuss her marital relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Is that an important part of your discussions as an investigator?
Yes.
What does she describe her marriage with Ryan Cooper as being?
Fairly typical question in an interview like this. I ask a person to rate their marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, and I go on to describe that a 1 would be about as bad as it could be, and I told her a 10 would be an excellent marriage. How would you rate you and Ryan's marriage? And she said, no marriage is a 10, so took that off the table, but she said her and Ryan's marriage was at least an 8. They were a great team, and it was a good marriage.
She described herself as a pretty lucky woman.
Yes, she said she was lucky to have married Ryan, and that they were good friends and a good team together several times.
Do you talk about whether there were any arguments or problems in the marriage that she described as an 8 out of 10?
Yes.
Does she tell you what sources of arguments were?
Yes.
What does she say?
She says they tease back and forth, and some people could construe that as, going a little too far. But other than that, she says really the only place of contention or arguing, there could be some talk about finances sometimes.
Let's talk about that. In terms of their finances, does she tell you the nature of their finances in the farm that they lived in?
Yes, I understood the overall condition of finances with this farm and where they live to be good, that they live in I think it was a rent-free or a very agreeable kind of situation there. And so
when she says they lived rent-free, in reference to that, is she talking in relation to the Cooper family farm owning much of the property?
That's my understanding. She describes it as that Cooper Farms owns a lot of this land and this buildings, and they're able to live in that place.
Do you ask about her or their financial stability at the time of Ryan's killing?
Yes.
What does she tell you in regards to that?
She says personally they're carrying almost no debt. She mentions that just each of their vehicles still has some debt, but it's in total under $25,000 for she and Ryan's vehicles.
In terms of money-related arguments, what does she tell you that she found unpleasant for her?
She mentions that Ryan would question her about purchases or use of money, and sometimes she felt like she needed to check with him on things when it came to money because he had questioned her about that.
Is that talk related to credit card usage that she would have to get from Ryan?
Yes, I don't know if it was specific to credit cards, but she talked about needing to sometimes get permission, she felt like, to make purchases.
And she didn't like that?
She did not. She said perhaps it could be controlling, and then she said, well, I really don't think he was controlling. So she kind of softened on that, but she did not like being challenged on the purchasing and use of money.
As you talk about the marital relationship, does the name of Houston Denker come up?
Yes.
Are you the one who brings it up?
No.
What does she tell you about Houston Denker?
So as I start to probe whether there was any infidelity or thoughts of infidelity, those kinds of things, she mentions Houston Danker as someone that she had cut hair for.
And that there had been rumors that they were having an affair?
She said yes. Everybody around town had rumored that she and Houston were having an affair.
Does she tell you a time frame of how long she had been communicating with Houston Denker?
She says about 6 months prior to Ryan's killing, they had started to talk.
Do you ask her what Ryan Cooper's perception of Houston Denker, does that conversation come up?
Yes.
What does she tell you?
She said that Ryan, along with the rest of the town, was not did not trust Houston. That Ryan believed, like many people, that Houston had slept with older women in the community and was not to be trusted.
So she acknowledged rumors about extramarital relationship, that there were rumors between her and Houston Denker, but when you asked her if this was true, what was her position?
She gave a strong or an adamant denial that there'd been anything, and said that Ryan had no reason not to trust her and she had no reason not to trust Ryan.
Claimed that she only cut Houston's hair?
Only cut his hair and then watched his children several times for him, babysat.
Did you ask her when her last communication or when she was last with Houston Denker?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
Several months after Ryan was killed, she noted was her last communication.
She gave you a date of sometimes in September 2021?
Yes, September 2021 is when she said she last had communication with Houston.
And in regards to that, does she say it's when she cuts his hair?
Yes, I think she pointed to that being the last time that she cut his hair.
Apparently, Karen Reed case is the case that just keeps on giving. Shoot, I lost it. Yuri Buchanan. Dang it, where'd it go? Yuri Buchanan out at the Norfolk County DA's office as of yesterday. State police confirmed this AM that he's been transferred to South Boston. So, Proctor's been fired, Brian. Tully has been reassigned, and now Yuri. They're cleaning house. They need to fire all of them.
Did you ask her
Hey, Robbie.
about communicating with Houston
Glenn.
Dinker through Snapchats?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about the nature of communication with Houston in regards to using the Snapchat application?
I think she describes it as being fairly light usage, and nothing provocative or anything like that. It was pretty simple use of Snapchat.
And so nothing personal from Houston, just...
Right, I understood that there was little to no kind of back and forth, maybe personally, or it was very minor. Some of that would have been maybe even messages that multiple people would receive. So it was not of a intimate or personal nature.
So like a group message?
Yes, that's how I understood it.
Did you ask her whether she had wondered whether Houston Dinker had killed Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I asked her that, or she commented on that.
Do you remember the nature of that part of the conversation?
Yes, she said she had wondered, but in the same sentence she said, but everybody had kind of wondered that, or that had been kind of somewhat typical or kind of town speculation.
Did she linger on that, or she immediately moved on from it?
Very quick, a passing comment.
Did you ask her whether Ryan Cooper had ever accused her of having an affair with Houston?
Yes.
What did she tell you in regards to that?
She said, no, he would have no reason to ever accuse me of that. That's, again, where she told me that he trusted me and I trusted him, and there would have been no point in him asking me about any affairs because they hadn't happened.
You talked about being in that residence prior to talking to the defendant, Ms. Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe that residence for the jury in terms of the size, like how big, or whether it's big, smaller house?
Yes, spending just a little bit of time in the house prior to talking to the defendant, it was noteworthy to me how tight things were. I'm thinking of the bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen to the living room, the areas that were described for me later by the defendant. This was all very, very close in proximity. It was small.
And we've put on the board what's been admitted as State Exhibit 313. Are you able to see that from where you are, Agent Talbot?
Yes.
When you describe the bedroom, the bathroom, from the bedroom, as you say, again, when she says, I went to the bathroom and then went and looked out of the kitchen window to the driveway, you're saying it's very close quarters.
Yes.
As you talked to her father, does she give a later account of what she thinks the loud noise would have been?
Yes.
What does she say?
So initially it was the shower caddy that she'd kind of detailed and described, and then later she said, after further reflection, she had believed that the crash that woke her the second time when she was woke was actually the screen door from the living room that sometimes the wind would catch and bang into the railing.
So now she gives you an account that what she believes it was the screen door shutting.
Yes.
Sometimes in your discussion, do you bring up the novelty or the use of forensic evidence in your investigations?
Yes.
What in particular do you share or do you tell her?
So again, fairly typical in these interviews, I share some of the technology that law enforcement's able to utilize to gather evidence. I mention cell phone activity very quickly, but move on to a concept, I think I refer to it as fencing or geofencing, but this is, again, where there's an ability to track people's usage of their cell phones, even when they're just moving around. Advertisers are gathering data, and so beyond just using your cell phone or sending a text messages or kind of conventional pinging of a cell phone, that there's this ability to kind of draw a fence around an area and see which phones have been in the fence and out of the fence. So we call that fencing.
So talk to her about this geofencing technology. What do you observe as you talk to her about this? What do you observe from her?
She nods. She says yes. Doesn't seem surprised by the technology or our use of it.
Appear to be savvy about, have some knowledge about geofencing?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yeah, at that time, geofencing was even less known than it is now. So you would, the typical person when we say that thing would not have a lot of knowledge about the use of geofencing or how we would be able to put cell phone usage in or out of a certain area.
So you talk, and so she appears to be very savvy about it.
Yes, somebody would have to be knowledgeable about technology, I would think, to understand that that was something that, I learned about through law enforcement use.
At this time, as you talk about geofencing, are you discussing the nature of the investigation and what you're seeing from what the phones will be saying?
Eventually, yes. So the conversation starts broad, just about different tools that we utilize. I talk about a couple of other electronic items that could be at our disposal, and then I draw that back to the case at hand and talk about what we'd be able to tell about what happened that night in that area.
So tell about this, does the body language or a demeanor change?
No.
As you, at some point in this discussion, does she become agitated?
Yes.
Is that when you started questioning what she told you?
Yes, I start to move from general application of the things that we talked about, the electronic evidence and those kinds of things, to what happened that night. And she became upset with me and said I was accusing her.
Claimed you're accusing her. Did you tell her you just wanted to know what had happened to Ryan?
Yes, I encouraged her to continue to talk to me and help me understand what happened that night in the house.
And what did she tell you in that regards to what happened, if she knew what happened to Ryan?
She tells me that if she knew who had done this to her husband, she would be in jail because she would have, in her words, she would have already killed that motherfucker.
Did she, in fact, at this point, chase you out of property?
Yes. She told me to get off her property. And that was the last thing that I had just said that she said to me as I was still encouraging her to sit down and continue telling me what happened that night.
She told you she was hiring a private investigator
Yes,
to solve this killing of Ryan?
yes.
Now, you spent a considerable lengthy time talking to the defendant, Ms. Cooper, correct?
Yes, I believe just a little over 3 hours that day.
In these 3 hours that you spent with the defendant, did she ever tell you that she was sending Snapchat messages to Houston Denker at 3:30 a.m. on the morning that Ryan was killed?
No, nowhere in that description that I'd asked her to give me to walk through the night did she tell me that.
Did she tell you that she was awake at 4:13 in the morning or thereabouts, deleting or looking up something on her phone?
No,
Did she tell you that about 3:32 or thereabouts a.m. that morning that she and Mr. Houston Denker were talking about her remembering to pick the shell casings?
there was no mention of that at all.
Did she acknowledge receiving a text message, a Snapchat message from Houston Denker at 4:42 a.m. stating, "Yep, just woke up"?
No. No acknowledgement of any messaging between the two of them that morning.
Did she tell you that when she found Ryan Cooper in the living room bleeding, whether she rendered any aid to Ryan Cooper?
She did not tell me that she had rendered aid in any way.
She tell you whether she checked for a pulse or heartbeat or anything to that extent?
No, that was not part of any of the description of events.
At some point in your conversation, do you talk about Michael Cole's clutch that was found in the driveway?
Not specifically, but a purse or something to that effect.
What would have been a clutch, correct?
Yes, yes.
Did she explain to you why that clutch was out in the driveway?
No, she acknowledged that, that it was outside with no explanation for why it was out there.
During this discussion, you talked about her telling you about finances. Did she disclose to you that a bank had been urging her urgently to transfer money for overdrafts in days leading up to the killing of Ryan Cooper?
No,
Did she tell you that she made about 170 steps between 4:23 a.m. and 4:30 or so a.m. that morning?
no,
As part of your investigation, do you at some point talk to the man we've talked about, Houston Denker?
yes, I do talk to him.
Do you remember the day that you talked to Houston Denker?
Yes, that would be October, I believe, 27th of 2023.
Prior,
May we approach them, Your Honor?
You may.
So I wonder what's going to happen if she's found guilty. I wonder if he's going to take a deal. or if he's gonna still go to trial.
We may have several breaks, so we do need to take something else up with just council and parties. So I am gonna take another break, and we'll say it'll be at least 10 minutes. So just so you folks know where kind of the time range. Admonition again: keep an open mind. Don't talk to anybody, don't let anybody talk to you, and count. So with that, we'll see you no sooner than 10 minutes.
Doesn't it suck that work interferes with the important stuff in your life? So what is the problem now?
All right, go ahead and be seated. All right, so what I know at this point, which isn't much, is that we're going to get into some questioning of Agent Turbot related to his interview of Mr. Danker, and that the defendant has an objection to that. And so why don't we start with you, Ms. Watt, and let me know what the defendant's objection is.
Thank you. We're not objecting to the interview that he gave to police in 2021. My specific objection is to the interview he gave in 2023. And because it's my understanding that the statements will come in if they're in furtherance of the conspiracy and up and until the conspiracy or the objective has been completed. It's our position that the statements in 2023 made to law enforcement, at that time, the conspiracy has ended. I know the state is going to say that this is part of the cover-up, but there is some case law, at least the case that I found in Iowa, I believe, was State v. Waterbury, 307 Northwest 2nd, 45, Iowa, 1981. In that case, there's a statement given to police by a co-conspirator that occurs within 6 hours of the event. Because basically, the conspiracy at issue here is the conspiracy to commit murder. So the objective is to finish the murder. And in the Waterbury case, that person gives a false statement to the police about who killed the person within 6 hours of the event. I can't find any cases that specifically allow for statements by a co-conspirator that are made years after the event. And it's my position that the cover-up doesn't last for years. And also the cover-up is not part of the conspiracy, as clearly in every case, people don't want to get caught. That is just part of any crime. And so that's not necessarily the cover-up, just every statement anybody makes. I have some indication here that while there may be a subsidiary conspiracy to conceal the crime after the central purpose has been achieved, such a subsidiary conspiracy may not be implied from the circumstantial evidence showing merely that the conspiracy and that the conspirators took care to cover up their crime to escape detention and punishment. Because here, the conspiracy again is to kill Ryan. It's unreasonable to say and believe that every single thing that Houston says to police up until his arrest counts as a statement by a co-conspirator. Further, we don't have any indication that these two are even still talking. I think Agent Turbot has testified that Karina said that the last time she spoke to Houston was in September of 2021, and I haven't heard any evidence suggesting that they spoke after that or closer in time to 2023. So our position is essentially that the concealment phase doesn't last forever, and this is too distant and too remote from the actual event and the objective of the conspiracy. Thank you.
And so the hearsay, it's hearsay because it doesn't meet that conspiracy exception.
Yes.
And the quote you just gave, was that from the case that you cited, the 307 Northwest 45? from
I don't know
some,
if it was. I would have to look into where exactly I
okay.
got that from.
But that's the right site, 307 Northwest 45.
That is the citation for the case I could find that's most close to this.
And to be clear, again, you guys have better information. There was a 2021 interview of Mr. Danker, and we're not talking about that. If the state is going to offer evidence related to that, you don't have an objection.
No objection to that one. I think there's only 2 interviews, one in 21. Well, there's 3, one in 21, one 23, and one in 24. I don't think the state intends to go into the one in 24.
All right, so who's, Mr. Kodiaga?
For the purpose of consistency, I know Mr. Ringel has argued this with the court before. We'll let Mr. Ringel argue this part.
All right,
Thank you, Judge. The state is relying on State v. Tangi, that's 616 Northwest 2nd, 564, and other similar cases, and noting that
I'm sorry, 616 Northwest 2nd, give me that last bit again.
564,
Okay,
in noting that the conspiracy can continue to the concealment phase. I believe there's a number of cases where statements were admitted that essentially involve covering up the crime that was committed and misleading the police. Now, the cover-up in and of itself, or a cover-up of a crime, doesn't necessarily constitute a conspiracy, thereby allowing information or otherwise hearsay statements to be admitted. But when a conspiracy is found to pre-exist, and then there are statements made in furtherance of that conspiracy, including cover-up, they are admissible. And I think that's an important distinction here, and I think that's what's outlined in Tangi and other similar cases. From the state's perspective, the information that we'll be admitting essentially is in furtherance of the conspiracy in the sense that it is information that from the state's perspective appears to be agreed upon by the 2 parties here. There's a striking similarity between the information that they're providing to law enforcement, and so it's the state's position that this is in fact in furtherance of the conspiracy.
and again, I don't know what the statements are. Presumably, it would be kind of a statement-by-statement analysis, right? I mean, wouldn't you have to analyze each statement by Mr. Danker to determine whether or not it's in furtherance of the conspiracy? I don't know how long this interview is, but, I mean, again, I haven't seen it. I haven't been provided a transcript of it. I don't know what's in there. And so, I mean, the defendant's essentially saying it should be blanketly excluded. You're essentially saying it should be blanketly, admitted. And isn't it a more, I guess, refined analysis than that?
Judge, I think it probably is a little more refined, and I think it is more nuanced. I do think that once the court has made a determination that a conspiracy exists, those statements made by the co-conspirator are not hearsay. They're statements by a party opponent. I think that the statements that are relevant to the analysis that the state believes are in furtherance of the conspiracy, in other words, statements made to conceal not only the objective of the crime, but the fact that the crime occurred at all, do come in. And then I think statements that are necessary to explain the context in which those statements were made would come in as well. That's what the state intends to admit. I don't believe the state intends to simply hit play or talk about everything that Houston Danker said to law enforcement.
All right, and just so we're clear on where we're at as far as the conspiracy, it's my understanding, at least for purposes of this, Ms. Cooper is not contesting, for purposes of this analysis, Ms. Cooper is not contesting the existence of a conspiracy for purposes of this analysis.
Correct.
All right, so that's...
Well, we are saying the conspiracy has ended.
I understand. That's a different analysis. You're saying there was for purposes of this analysis, there was a conspiracy, so statements properly made during the course of that conspiracy are not hearsay. Your argument, again, is the conspiracy's ended, and that still, even then, you've got to determine that the statement has been made in furtherance of the conspiracy cover-up. And again, I guess my point is, each particular statement would need to meet that analysis. So let me bring this back a second. We have a 2021 interview that apparently there's no dispute about. Are you planning on offering that interview as well, or not?
Portions, yes.
I'm sorry, portions, yes? All right. Well, anything else, Ms. Watt or Mr. Ringel? Miss Watt, your microphone's on, and so I
Sorry.
can't hear you very well.
I think the place I was getting my information where I was talking about subsidiary conspiracies. Could be US v. Lombard, Lombard, 72 F 3rd, 170, First Circuit, 1995. I also have possibly Grunewald v. United States, that's Grunewald, 353 U.S. 391, 1957. If I narrow it down better, I will let you know.
All right. Mr. Ringo, anything further on your end?
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Judge, I would just note that I'm not aware of any case that indicates essentially a time bar on the length of a conspiracy and how long that conspiracy can continue after the time of the killing. Other than that, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do is take 5 or so minutes, take a quick look at these cases you've cited, and we'll come back in and I'll make a ruling on this and bring the jury back in. All right? So we'll be in recess for approximately 5 minutes, maybe a few more. We'll see how quickly I can get this done.
So what is she wanting to do? Exclude his one of his interviews? Like, because so she's saying because the the second interview, the conspiracy was over, therefore it's hearsay because he's not a co-conspirator anymore. I don't. That's stupid. No, the conspiracy never ends. How does the conspiracy end? He's your co-con. If no, that's stupid. What do you guys think? I think that's stupid. Because if two people plan a crime together and they get caught, what each one says in an interview about the crime is relevant to the other one always and forever. It the conspiracy never ends. They always conspired to do that crime together. How does a conspiracy end? Even after they're like, "Oh, the jig is up, we got caught." The conspiracy still existed. It doesn't just go away because they got caught. It's not like poof, the conspiracy disappeared. It's not like, I mean, they're talking about a time when the conspiracy existed. Hello? Is this thing on? Hello? You guys are too quiet today. Is it because it's Monday? Are you guys hungover from the holiday weekend? What? Talk to me, people. That's just the most bizarre argument. I've never heard an attorney argue that before. I mean, apparently she has case law, but that's just like, I've never heard an attorney argue that before. Oh, I know why she's arguing it. Damn it. StreamYard, quit messing with stuff. Oh, but wait, I kind of like this better. Never mind. It's actually easier to find my clips now. Oh my.
Your Honor, I object!
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case!
Overruled.
Good call!
Better. I can find them easier, but it doesn't work better.
Your Honor, I object!
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case!
Overruled.
Good call!
Here we go. It worked that time. I'm bored. Since y'all aren't talking, I'm just gonna play. I haven't seen that movie in so long. I barely remember it. It's like chemo has just drilled holes in my brain, and there are things that I just don't remember.
Don't be suspicious. No, don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio? Come to take his son as home! Come, Rabbi! To take his son as home! To take his son as home!
Cut the middle part out of that?
There are 4 lines!
Robbie sent me the cutest picture. It was like a store shelf, and there was a Jean-Luc Picard doll, and next to it was a box of light bulbs, and it said quantity 5, and the picture on the box were 4. It was 4 lights, but it said there were 5 lights in the box, and then had a Captain Picard doll next to the box of lights. That's great. Like the funniest thing ever. But yeah, that's a I think it's a ridiculous argument, but apparently she has case law. So, but can a judge see? This is when I need to be a lawyer. This is when I feel like I'm failing you guys because I don't know the law. I know you guys are my friends and I know you like my commentary, but I hate that I don't know the answers to the law questions. Because can a judge rule if there's case law? Can the judge rule against it? Like, if her case law is right, can he say, no, that interview is allowed in and it's not hearsay? I don't see how. How does a conspiracy just go away? Because it was a conspiracy. The crime itself was a conspiracy. So if you question someone about, if you're questioning them about something that happened.
All right, we are back on the record outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper present. I believe off the record, Mr. Ringel, you indicated you had something additional you wished to tell me, perhaps, related to this matter?
Judge, thank you. I believe the parties are largely on the same page with regard to which statements are going to come in. They do apply primarily, perhaps if not exclusively, to the earlier interview, the 2021 interview, with regard to timelines and the length of the conspiracy. I would just point the court to State versus Ross, which is 573 Northwest 2nd 906.
I've got that pulled up. That was the case I found when doing my research as well. All right, anything further from either Mr. Ringel or Ms. Watt?
I just didn't hear the citation.
It's 573 Northwest 2nd 906, State v. Ross.
Thank you.
All right. So just want to make sure. Nothing further, Mr. Ringel?
Correct, nothing further.
Nothing further, Ms. Watt?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, so again, I know Ms. Cooper's not contesting this for purposes of these statements, and I don't believe did for prior statements that may have come in as well, because no objection was made. But just so it's clear, I do believe that there is a preponderance of the evidence that supports the existence of a conspiracy in this case, and that's based on the testimony and evidence that's already been received, as well as the court's review of Exhibits 1 and 2 that were offered by the state previously. So once a conspiracy has been established, then statements made by a co-conspirator are not hearsay. If two conditions are established: one, the statement has to be made during the course of the conspiracy, and it must be made in the promotion of the conspiracy's object or design. As I mentioned, I also took a look at State v. Ross, and that's Iowa Supreme Court case from 1998, 573 Northwest 2nd 906 as the site. In that case, the hotly contested issue was whether the statements were made in furtherance of the conspiracy, and the court, quoting from the case, it says, "As in most illegal schemes, the perpetrators agree either expressly or tacitly that they will do whatever it takes to conceal the scheme from victims and from authorities. They do so to continue the scheme, or at least to keep the fruits of it, and to avoid prosecution." And anyway, they go on in that case to admit statements that were made allegedly in that case in furtherance, as part of the alleged concealment phase in furtherance of the conspiracy. So based on that case and the authorities cited in that case, I do believe that statements that are part of a concealment phase even if they're 2 years later, would be admissible. I mean, it makes no logical sense that there would be a timeline on concealment of a crime between co-conspirators, 20 years down the road if people are, had committed a crime, conspired to commit a crime together, and were still engaged in concealing it up. Logically, why should that be treated differently than something 6 months after the crime? So anyway, for those reasons, to the extent the statements in the interview are offered part of the concealment phase, the objection's overruled, and we can move forward. Any questions related to that? Or are we ready to proceed? I'll start with you, Mr. Ringel.
Judge, I don't believe so. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, any questions on your end?
No.
Okay. Then I'm going to step out, grab Erin, and see if she can bring the jury back in, and then we'll get started. And just so I'm not planning on taking another break before the lunch recess. Everybody going to be good with that? 2 minutes.
I'm tired of breaks. Bill, don't start. What'd I say? What did I just say? Oh, yay, we get an exit sign to look at. I want to look at the pretty clock. Bring the pretty clock back. Ooh, what? I just took you outside and you didn't do anything. And you got a cookie anyway. Now what do you want?
All right, go ahead and have a seat, everyone. All right, we're back on the record with our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have Agent Turbot back on the stand. And again, I would remind you that even though we took a short break, you are still under oath. And with that, Mr. Kodiaga, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Judge. Agent Turbot, before we took a break, we had started talking about Houston Denker, whose name had come up in the investigations, correct?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, I think your testimony earlier was at some time in October of 2023, you do personally talk to Houston Denker, correct?
Yes.
Prior to talking to Mr. Denker in October of 2023, had you or one of the agents talked to Mr. Denker in close proximity to the of Ryan Cooper?
Yes, my colleague, a fellow DCI agent, spoke to Houston.
You reviewed that interview with Mr. Denker prior to even talking to him before talking to him in 2023, correct?
Yes, I reviewed the June 18 interview.
And June 18th, is that June 18th, 2021?
Yes.
The day that Ryan Cooper was killed.
Yes.
Reviewing that, did you understand that that Houston Denker was asked about her communication with the defendant, Karina Cooper, over Snapchat?
Yes.
What was his response to that?
Again, I think he says there's no real communication going on via Snapchat between the two at that time.
When you say that, can you elaborate on what he says more on that?
I think he admits to some messaging, but again, there's nothing intimate or personal going on between the two.
Does it give a frequency of how often he being Houston Denker and Karina Cooper would communicate on Snapchat?
Once or twice a week.
Does it give a time frame of how long they would have been communicating?
I don't remember. It might have been a period of several months, 3 or 4 months.
But otherwise, these are random snaps, not anything.
Yes.
Does he get asked what his relationship with Karina Cooper entails?
Yes.
What does he say?
Again, she's been cutting his hair. I think he says at that point, maybe for a period of even a couple of years. And they have just had what he would describe as kind of a typical conversation almost between the person getting their hair cut and the person doing it.
Is Houston Denker asked if there was any problem between him and Ryan Cooper, especially as regards Snapchats?
Yes.
What's his response?
No problem between he and Ryan with regard specifically to anything to do with Snapchat.
Is he asked how he will describe his relationship with the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes, the agent asked him to talk about that.
What, in Houston Denker's words, how does he describe himself in terms of his relationship with Karina Cooper?
Houston tells the agent at that time that he's like a gay best friend to Karina, totally platonic. There's no sexual or romantic interest. So he says it's like a gay best friend.
Is he at this time confronted whether he was having an affair or a sexual affair with Karina Cooper?
He's asked that, yes.
And is his response still that no, it's just a gay best friend?
Yes, strong denial to any affair.
Does he acknowledge that there are rumors in the community that they are having a sexual relationship?
He does. He says during this time of her cutting his hair, they've talked about relationships and kids in life, and he has shared that he has a couple of young children. He's a single dad, so Karina has apparently done a little bit of babysitting, so he says the community picks up on the fact that his truck is over at the Cooper house on one occasion, and so the rumor has started that they're having an affair and that he is, in his words, banging Karina, having sex with her.
And so he says Karina has been watching his kids, and that's the extent, and that's what's led to the rumors, because the defendant has been babysitting his kids, his being Houston Duncan's kids.
Yes, Houston's very clear in the June 18, 2021 interview that she just cuts his hair, and then she has babysat for him. I think he puts it at several times, just a few times. And that is what has started the rumors in the community.
Is he asked if there's been any inappropriate Snapchats or messages between him, being Houston Duncan, and the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes.
What's his response to that?
He says absolutely no inappropriate Snapchatting going between them.
Thank you very much, Agent Talbot. At this point, Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Watt?
Thank you. I understand you interviewed Karina, was it 2023?
Yes, May 4th, 2023.
And Aaron Cooper was there at the time as well?
He met on the driveway and was there for a short bit, and then he ended up leaving and staying in the area.
Was there a time where Karina wanted Aaron to stand by and be with her during the interview?
There was some discussion of that.
Okay. So at least at that time, Aaron and Karina appeared to be on good terms?
Seemed courteous, yeah, as we stood in the driveway and talked for a few minutes.
There's been a lot of talk about this Rottweiler dog and how the dog might be expected to behave. Did you review the body cam of Deputy Fangman?
No, I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
When he arrives on scene?
No, I did not.
Okay. So I guess, have you observed for yourself how this dog behaves?
No. I've only been told by others.
Is most of what you discussed with Karina on some sort of recording?
So the interview, as I said, or the total recording from the time I pull up in the driveway, I believe is 3 hours and 10 minutes. What you can hear is I activate my recorder immediately. I actually put a header on saying I've just arrived, the date and time. I get out and introduce myself, and at some point unbeknownst to me, that recorder immediately malfunctions. It stops. I don't catch that until I'm now pretty far into my conversation with just Karina. I look down, so we're at about the 2-hour mark of my total time there, and I see the recorder has malfunctioned, so I immediately turn it on. And I'd taken good handwritten notes, so I recap everything with her and then continue on.
But with DCI agents, you do not have a body cam. It's only an audio recording?
That's correct.
You talked about how you talked to Karina about this geofencing, right?
Yes.
As an investigator, are you allowed to, is one of your tactics basically to sometimes tell people you have things that you may actually not have?
We would imply that we certainly have a better understanding or have more knowledge than we do sometimes, yes.
Okay. So officers are allowed to lie to people?
They are. The Supreme Court has said that.
it's my understanding in looking at your notes from the recording at least, that you explained to Karina how geofencing works.
Yes, in some type of kind of simple fashion.
Okay. And also how cell tower data works.
Again, in a simple way, yes, I think.
Right. But she didn't say, hold up, I already know all these things.
She did not. She just nodded and says yes.
Do we have geofencing information in this case that you're aware of?
I actually don't know. You'd have to speak to somebody on the technology side.
Okay. So I imagine then you don't necessarily know what the geofence actually captures and is capable of?
In this case?
In
or-
any?
It's not my area of expertise, so we would rely on other people. Geofencing has been used, and we would just ask what's been captured in a case-by-case basis if that's utilized.
Okay. So you wouldn't know whether the geofence actually captures every phone that travels through that fence?
In this case again, or?
In any?
I don't know how tightly someone would describe that. I guess you'd have to talk to somebody that has better understanding of that.
The conversation with Houston Danker in 2021 that we're discussing, that was captured on a video recording, correct?
It was.
Okay, and you had a chance to look at that?
I did.
Would you agree with me that his statements, the best evidence of those would be actually watching the video?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a
Your
little
Honor, I'd like to
awkward
play
in
that video
her-
and I'd mark it as defendant's exhibit.
Yeah, she's a little awkward in the way that she asks her questions. I guess you think it's an experience thing? Um, yeah. I think she has a potential to be good, but uh something about the way she acts, like she seemed kind of unsure.
C, and ask that it be admitted.
Any objection?
No objection.
You ready for me to try your screen? Or just let me know.
Yes, let's
All
try it.
right.
I don't know, we'll find out.
No. Try it again. Give me 1 second. I just tried the screen again. All right. Nothing. All right. You wanted to approach. You.
really need to learn how to take care of their tech stuff. Any day now.
Okay, we are back on the record. Nobody left. We still have our Agent Turbot at the stand. And a little help from the state. We have the Defendant's Exhibit C ready to go. So, Ms. Watt, I think you were asking that this Exhibit C, which had been admitted, be published at this point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So it appears to me we have half of it working at this point. That be fair?
That is fair.
Council approach. think with the agreement of council is we're going to move forward with, I think, questioning of witnesses, and we're going to try to set aside things that require use of technology at this point till maybe over the, and give council some time over the lunch hour to hopefully get squared away with all the tech issues that may crop up. So with that, we'll come back to playing that interview at a later point. Ms. Watt, why don't you go ahead then with your cross-examination?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
Just to be clear, when you asked if about the video recording that we were unable to play in regards to it being best evidence, we'll have more details of exactly every word that was spoken.
Yes.
But your summary or summation to the jury is pretty much what that 20 minutes, what is said within that 20 minutes of that interview.
Yes, and what I said was accurate.
And pretty accurate to the flavor of what was said in that 20 minutes of that interview.
Very much so.
You talked about your interview being recorded by an audio recorder, correct?
Yes.
And even though your recorder failed, you still were able to capture a lot and go through the same with defendant Karina Cooper of what you'd covered before.
Yes, I took very detailed notes, which we always do as a backup because malfunctions happen with those recorders in the field. And then I reread those things back to her to make sure I understood them correctly from my notes, and she agreed.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any recross?
When I'm saying best evidence, I mean, wouldn't it be, as an investigator, you're evaluating somebody's credibility, right?
I am when I talk to people, sure.
Okay, so when I say best evidence, it's just sometimes better to talk or see the person and hear the words come out of their mouth on a video.
You would have the benefit of visual, and you would have more detail, as the prosecution said.
Right, that's all, thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Agent Turbot, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Mr. Ringel or Mr. Kodiaga or Ms. Williams, stay prepared to call its next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Kirsty Shetta.
All right. Good morning, ma'am. You want to come over and have a seat to my far left, if you would? So you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. Yep, it's on. You can move it up, down, closer. So. Okay. All right. First thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then if you could please give us your first and last name and spell them both for us for the record.
Kirsty Shetta, Kirstie
All right. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Shetta. Do you prefer Kirsty or Ms. Shetta?
Kirsty is fine.
Thank you. Kirsty, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa?
And are you currently employed?
Yes.
How are you employed?
I work at JSA Development, downtown Waterloo.
Okay. Ms. Shetta, at some point in 2024, did you meet with law enforcement regarding this case?
Yes.
Did they tell you why they wanted to meet with you?
No.
Was it generally to discuss the death of Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Did you know Ryan and Karina Cooper well?
Yes.
How long have you known Ryan and Karina?
Probably 8 to 10 years.
Okay. When did you first meet them?
When I moved to town.
Okay.
Moved to Traer.
About when did you move to Traer?
2007.
Okay. Who'd you meet first, Ryan or Karina?
Ryan.
Okay. How did you meet Ryan?
I was working at a place in Traer, and it was a hardware store, cell phone place, so he came in for parts
Okay.
and cell phone.
At some point thereafter, did you meet Karina?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Karina and Ryan develop a sort of friend group, I guess, as it were?
Yes.
And who all was in this friend group that you all shared?
It would have been me and my husband, Carmen and Jamie, Matt and Regan, Mike, or Ike and Michelle, Cynthia and Barry. There was multiples.
What kind of things would you all do as a group?
Various things. We would go hang out at each other's places. A bunch of the friends had shops that we hung out at.
Was this a frequent type of activity or organization, or how would you characterize how often you all saw each other?
I would say, at least once a weekend, if not during the week also.
Did you all travel together?
Yes.
Okay. And take your friends and kids together on these
Correct.
trips? Okay. And you stated you knew Ryan first, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe Ryan Cooper?
Man of little words.
Okay. Understand. Did you at some point work with Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, where was that at?
Aurora Agronomy.
Okay. What did you do there?
I was the office, took care of all the books, ordering.
How did you come to be in that position at Aurora?
Karina had worked there before, and she was pregnant with Cortland, and then she wanted to stay home. So then I applied for the job.
Did she kind of refer you to that job or let you know in advance, hey, I'm leaving this position?
Yeah, we had talked.
Okay. And were you and Karina at one point, were you pregnant at the same time?
Yes, with our first children.
Okay. You kind of bond
our
over
second.
that? I'm sorry.
And our second.
And your second? Okay. And did you all kind of bond over those?
Yes.
Kind of mutual pregnancies together? Would you say that you and Karina became good friends during that time?
Yes.
In this time that you knew Ryan and Karina together, what observations did you make about how Ryan would interact with Karina?
I guess if Karina was mad or yelling at him, his demeanor was always just to put his head down and take it.
How was he with his children?
Good.
You said at some point you and Karina also became good friends. How would you describe your relationship with Karina at the beginning?
Yeah, we had just an interest of bonding because we both did hair, and we kind of just became friends through that, and her starting to date Ryan. We would hang out as families together. We'd go on vacations together. just close with the whole Cooper family.
At some point, did you actually help out in her shop, her hair shop?
No, I'd never.
Did your friend group have kind of a group Snapchat?
Yes,
Okay. And was there one group Snapchat or were there several group
Several.
Snapchats? At some point, would you say that there was a shift in your relationship with Karina or Karina's relationship with the whole kind of extended friend group?
yes.
Can you pinpoint about when that occurred?
Late fall of the year before Ryan was murdered.
So the fall of 2020, would that be about the
Correct.
time? What were some of the changes that you noticed?
Just pulling away from our friend group, not responding back to messages. We had heard some different things throughout town, and we just kind of started separating, I guess.
I guess that's kind of where I was going. Did something specific, or can you identify something specific that may have triggered that shift in the friend dynamic?
It would have been the rumors going around about her in Houston.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you a little bit about what you noticed between Karina and Ryan's dynamic. How would you describe Karina's behavior or towards Ryan?
Depending on a given day, some days were okay, some days were not, and her demeanor towards him was anger.
Can you recall any examples when you say some days were okay and then some days were not okay?
I mean, there was times where she would rant about him and talk about how, you know, he was always off working and doing all this stuff, and she would just get like angry about it. And at one of our conversations, she's like, we talked about, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly her words, but it was like talking about if she would leave, she would try to take him for everything he had.
Were some of these incidents in front of Ryan? Would he be around during some of these times that she would behave this way?
I mean, when she was mad at him, she would, some of them were not. There was an instance where we were all hanging out and she would refer to him as, because we worked together, me and Ryan, she would refer to me as his work wife and kind of belittle, I guess, Ryan, and be like, why don't you ask your work wife? Maybe she can do it better for you.
Did you take that as kind of a dig?
Yeah, correct.
How would Ryan respond?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. Sustained.
Throughout Ryan's, or when you and Karina were discussing things, did she ever express to you any resentment towards Ryan?
Often.
What were those resentments centered around?
That Ryan got everything, or the farm got everything.
Were they primarily financial?
Yes.
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation, and much of this is beyond the scope of the minutes, Judge.
I'm sorry, what was the last part? I didn't.
Beyond the scope of the minutes. Speculation beyond the scope of the minutes.
Council
May we
want to
approach?
approach?
Not if they told her that. It's not beyond the scope of her knowledge. If they were friends and she told her. When you work with someone day in and day out, you say all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times you might think you're more friends than not when you really
All right.
aren't. You know what I mean?
After a brief bench conference, it's my understanding that the objection, to the extent that it's related, was based on exceeding the minutes, is withdrawn. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Then the balance of the objection is overruled, and the witness may answer, assuming you remember the question.
No, can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Ms. O'Connell, can you repeat back the question?
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Yes, at one point, there was a conversation about Ryan's ex-wife, Liz, and saying that Liz got everything, and if she stepped out, she would have nothing. She would not get anything,
Thank you.
because everything was wrapped up in Cooper Farms.
Kirsty, did you know Houston Danker?
Yes.
How did you know him?
He is a couple years younger than my son, my oldest son, so he was a Traer boy, and
So you knew him from around town?
yes.
Whoa. Houston was
At some
her
point,
son?
did you learn that Karina and Houston were engaged in some sort of relationship?
Objection, Your Honor. Relies on hearsay.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yes, I did.
How did you find out about this relationship?
We were at a friend's house, and he wound up showing up there in the late fall
And when you say
of 2020,
he, who are you referring to?
Houston. And we had heard throughout the day that they were texting each other and snapping each other back and forth. And when he got to the house, we took his phone and seen all the messages.
Did you actually see these messages yourself?
So it wasn't based on hearsay.
Her Snapchat handle was Casey with a heart, and I seen I love you and a picture above.
You didn't see, you saw.
Where were you when you saw these messages?
I was at Pam Ewald's house.
Drives me crazy.
What did the messages suggest to you was the nature of Houston and Karina's relationship?
A sexual relationship, an affair.
She looks pissed now.
you ever confront Karina about those messages?
I did not. She had sent me a message the next morning.
The message that she sent you the next morning, what did it say?
Paraphrasing, to the fact of, can you believe the rumors going around that me and Houston, I just did not respond because at that point, there was so many things prior to that that just solidified to me that she was lying.
Did she ever admit to you that she was having a relationship or an affair with Houston?
No.
Are you aware personally if at some point Ryan Cooper became aware of the relationship between Karina and Houston?
Yes.
How are you aware of that?
Through one of the guys I worked with at Aurora.
So someone else told you that?
Yes.
Do you recall about when that occurred?
Spring.
Would have been spring of
Spring of
2021?
Yeah.
Shortly before Ryan was killed?
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from that March, April-ish.
Okay. In the days and weeks leading up to Ryan's death, did you notice anything unusual or what you would describe as unusual about Karina's behavior?
Yes.
What did you notice?
2 days before his murder, we had all of our Snapchat group friend. Me and Carmen had gone down to a show in Dallas, Texas for our business. And when we landed and got to the airport, we were just scrolling through our Snapchats, and all of a sudden it said Karina had left the group, and we were going through the rest of them, just normal, and she wound up going back, leaving all of the groups that we were ever a part of.
And can you just clarify, who is Carmen?
Carmen is a part of the friend group and a business partner of mine. Carmen Earhart.
Did the ladies in the group kind of have a separate group that was apart from the full families of groups?
Yeah, we had multiple different groups.
Did you guys have kind of
We had a golf group.
Okay, a golf group.
We had a TCMW group. I mean, we had them named all sorts of different things.
Okay. When you say the TCFW, was that the Tama County Housewives group?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying about 2 days before Ryan was killed, Karina just left all of the Snapchat groups, is that correct?
Yes.
Did she give you a reason for exiting those groups?
Nope, I just remember in our golf group, there was a tournament on that Wednesday. All of us girls had started talking about getting a group together for golf on that Wednesday, like on that Monday prior. And I told the girls I was out because we were flying out. Everybody else in the group was talking to get their group. And then Karina just like never responded. She just...
I want to switch gears just a bit. Are you a gun owner, Kirsty?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of firearm do you have?
A Ruger 9.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Karina about guns or firearms in general?
Yes, we had one conversation that I recall shortly after we got our permit to carries, which is...
What types of guns did you and Karina talk about specifically, if any?
We talked about how I shot my Ruger 9 and I didn't like the kickback, that it kicked back really bad. And then I had shot my mother-in-law's baby 22 and that it was just like so smooth. And just how the correspondence of that was so different. And then she said the same thing. She's like, I just got a 22 as well, like, and it shoots so smooth. I understand what you're talking about, you know, like, we just kind of talked about that.
So she described to you how the 22 shot as well?
Yes.
Do you remember about when that conversation occurred?
I would have got my permit to carry in 2018, December, so it would have been late winter going into January, February when we were hanging out.
Okay. So well before Ryan is killed, you guys are having pretty in-depth conversations about firearms and the different characteristics of the firearms you had, correct?
Well, not
Correct.
her, but Karina. Liar, liar.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. The defense may have some questions for you.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So you became good friends with Ms. Cooper, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And you were good friends for quite a long time, fair?
fair.
And even during that time that she might have yelled at Ryan or had good days or bad days, you remained her friend?
Correct?
And that behavior was nothing that was shocking or concerning to you. I'm assuming you chalked that up as just sort of the normal dynamics of a relationship.
At points, yes.
Yeah, okay. And the friend group that you were having, these snaps and things like that, did law enforcement ever seize your phone to verify the Snapchat conversations?
No.
Okay. But those conversations and whether or not Ms. Cooper left the group and things like that, presumably she did that from her phone?
Yeah, she would have to remove herself from the group.
And all the time that you saw Ms. Cooper get angry at Ryan or anything like that, you never saw any act of violence by Ms. Cooper towards Ryan, correct?
It was not physical, verbal.
Never hitting, never smacking, nothing like that? Yeah. Or threats of physical harm, threats to shoot him or anything like that, never said that?
No.
This golf tournament you were talking about, was Karina even invited to that?
She signed up on her own.
The guns that you were talking about, those are handguns, is that right?
Yes.
No talk about rifles or long guns?
No?
And the permit to carry, you ultimately got your permit to carry?
Yes.
And with that permit to carry, does that involve some education on your part?
Yes.
You have to learn some things.
Yes.
Are you aware that there are resources online that can provide you with that information?
I never looked into that, no.
Okay. Courses on guns, things like that?
No.
So you wouldn't know if Karina was taking advantage of those online resources when she was getting her permit?
I do not.
That information about the 22 being smooth, did you ever witness Ms. Cooper shoot that gun?
I did not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Kirsty, were there points or incidences where you thought Karina's behavior towards Ryan was not normal or not appropriate?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Anything further, Mr. Hawbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Mr. Kodiaga, is the state prepared to call its next witness?
The state calls Carmen Earhart.
If anybody wants to stand up and stretch while we're waiting for the witness to come on in, feel free. I'm going to. right, good morning, ma'am. If you want to go ahead and have a seat right there, that'd be great. And you can adjust that microphone however it best suits you. So first thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give me your first name and your last name and spell them both for us, please?
Yes, it's Carmen Earhart. First name Carmen, last name Erhardt.
All right. Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you. Still morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Stated your name. Can you tell us where you currently reside?
I live in Traer, Iowa.
Again, where?
Traer,
Strayer.
Iowa. Yep.
And is this a community you've lived in for a long time?
Yes, I lived there since I've been married for 20 plus years.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Ryan Cooper?
I have known him got to know him very well through all the stuff that we did. Being a small town, you're going to know people, but as far as Ryan, we do things like such as going motorcycling, snowmobiling. We take vacations, stuff together, but have just known him more through my husband is how I got to know him.
What's your husband's name?
Jamie.
Okay. So you knew Ryan through Jamie.
Yes.
Fair to say you and the Coopers were family friends?
Yes, we did. I knew Ryan before I knew Karina, but once they got together, we got started doing things such as when we started motorcycling and we'd go on motorcycling trips. We'd go on, we have a place in Wisconsin, and they would go, and for a short time that they had a camper up at that location in which we would share and spend weekends and holidays and stuff too at.
Do you know someone by the name of Karina Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Do you see that person in this courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify that person by where she's seated or an item of her clothing?
She's sitting over to my right with a sweater on.
Did the record reflect identification?
The record so reflects.
So you've testified you knew Karina through Ryan. Were your families pretty close?
We were, like I said, we did a lot of things together, from just vacationing or times, but I got to know her very well, became a good friend of hers. She would do my hair.
So we've had testimony that she used to cut hair and do hair?
Yes,
Okay, and that was at their home in Traer.
yes.
At some point in the year leading up to Ryan's death, does the nature of the friendship change?
It does. We had a little bit of falling out. I would say that the friendship wasn't as close as it had been in the past.
Now, as someone who was around both Karina Cooper and Ryan Cooper, were there occasions that you and your husband and the Coopers would go out to socialize, maybe to drink or hang out?
Yes, it was quite frequent, yeah.
During these occasions, did you chance to notice or observe moments of hostility exhibited towards Ryan Cooper by Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what issues would make Karina be hostile towards Ryan?
It would be different times, like arguments where she would just get very upset with him. Sometimes that was even directed to other people than just him, but she would just, for whatever reason, they would be arguing and she would get very loud and would argue in person with them.
Would she get very mean when she was upset with Ryan?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, you could physically tell she was very upset and yelled at that with him.
Agitated?
I'm sorry.
Agitated.
One of the prime example would be is I know that we were at a location, we've been out, she was arguing with Ryan. Another friend tried to step in and kind of like dissolve the situation. She even grabbed that person by the hair and ripped them back out of the argument. So I mean, you could physically tell that she was very upset. As far as the conversation, I don't know what was going on, but it was very blatant. You could see that she was not happy with them.
Now, were there conflict that you observed involving money or finances?
There's been conflict, yeah. We've personally had some conversations where she's shared some of what she may have felt like he was getting, and as far as what her money would go towards and what she would spend on. There would be conversations as far as the farm setup. Like I said, we spent a lot of time together. She was around my family. Our family farms, as far as how they're set up, were pretty similar, so I was familiar with how things were.
Can you tell the jury more about that?
Some of them would be the conversations we had would be where she would be upset, where she felt like if he wanted to buy a side-by-side, he would get the side-by-side. He wanted the truck, he got the truck, but her money, that she was making, she would have to spend that on the food, the kids, and that, so she wouldn't get. But then she would also, in the same breath, state that if Ryan had to buy his
That's
own
how I do it,
side-by-side,
too.
but Cooper's Farms would buy Aaron the side-by-side and stuff, so.
So, as regard the Cooper's farm, was it your observation or understanding that she knew?
Side-by-sides can be, for farm use though, they can be written off as a business expense because they're an off-road vehicle that you can take anywhere on a farm. That's, it can be. It can also be used for fun, but it can also be a business expense if you have a farm.
How money was controlled in terms of the Cooper farm controlling some of the money that Ryan had access to?
Yes, I mean, in our just our conversations to each other, yeah, she had a good understanding how it is, and just even, like I said, with family farms being set up pretty similar, and knowing how those corporate farms work, she knew where the money came from.
Likewise, because your family had the same kind of setup,
Yes.
where the corporate farming family was in charge of the finances of the
Yes.
expenditure.
As far as, yep.
At some point, do you become aware of the defendant, Karina Cooper, having an affair with someone named Houston Denker?
At first, it was just hearsay as far as rumors. But the day I really became very well aware of it is we had been actually out an evening at Larry's in Lincoln, and we had all been, Ryan, Karina, Jamie, and I had been there. We had actually left earlier before the bar closed and went home. We were already in bed asleep once we got a phone call, which actually was Ryan calling JB in the middle of the night, which was that was unusual. In fact, I think it was probably the first time we ever got a phone call that late at night from him. So my husband answered it, afraid that like something had happened, and so he picked up the phone and he was talking to him. Ryan proceeds to tell Jamie that.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
So there was a phone call Ryan makes at night.
Mm-hmm.
That phone call, is that how you became aware of an affair?
Yes.
Did you ever personally confront Karina about the affair with Houston Denker?
I didn't, for a few different reasons.
Okay.
One
Objection,
of,
Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Now, so the answer to your question is you didn't confront Karina. Fair enough.
I did not know.
Let's talk about your knowledge of firearms and Karina's knowledge of firearms. Did you attend a class or situation where you would have been with Karina and she would have been around firearms?
Yes, I took a concealed weapons permit class, which was actually held at Ryan and Karina's home, in the shop at their home.
So there was a class that you took in Karina's and Ryan Cooper's home.
At the shop, yes.
From your understanding and from your relationship that you've talked broadly about that stretches across various years, was your observation that Karina had a fair good knowledge of firearms?
Yes, my husband had given me a gun for a Christmas gift. With that, we've had conversations about that. We've talked about, because at times when I've actually shot the gun, and just discussion about the gun as far as the one he had given me, a little bit of my comfort level, and we talked back and forth about that. In that, just in our general conversations, when I was given that gift, the gun for as a gift, she had made comments about how, my husband gets me a gun, Ryan, why don't you get me something like that? We've just in general talked about the fact that one of the reasons I took a concealed weapons permit is because any vehicle, any of our friend groups, no matter if it's ours, anybody's, there's typically a gun that's concealed in there. So the properly covered, we took that. Like I said, I've talked to, as far as shooting it, be at the comfort level of it, having them, being around them. We've had conversations. I've never, will honestly physically say that I can recall or remember.
Objection, Your Honor, narrative.
Sustained.
So fair enough that she and you had been around firearms in many occasions and had discussed firearms in more than one sitting.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about in the time leading, in the months or the period, the approximate period leading to Ryan's killing, was there some behavior changes that you noticed from Karina Cooper?
Yes, there was. Pulling out of friend groups, things that we did constantly together, no longer being involved in those. A great amount of weight loss that I even questioned and even asked her, and that's even in writing somewhere.
So withdrawal from your friend group and also physical in terms of how experiencing what you observed as some weight loss?
Yes.
Hey, Jill, sleepyhead.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Morning, ma'am. How long were you friends with Miss Cooper?
We would have became friends closer to when we started motorcycling together, so it would have been roughly around a little bit before, I would say closer to after they'd been married.
And it occurs to me that when you say we were out or we were at a place, 9 times out of 10, you guys were at a bar or something like that. Is that right?
It would be boating, it would be on snowmobiles, it'd be, yeah,
There were times to get together for social drinking.
yes.
Okay. And that's oftentimes when you would witness Miss Cooper get louder or upset or things like that, right?
It could have been, yes.
Was there some belief that that might have been related to alcohol?
There could be, yeah.
Yeah. And when she was upset, it could be about any number of things, not necessarily finances. It could just be something on that day. Fair? Yes?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So the finances weren't exactly a theme when she was upset. There are a lot of things that would make her upset. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you're familiar with family farms.
Yes.
You're familiar because of your marriage, I assume, with how the LLCs work and that sort of thing?
It's on my side of the family farm.
It's on your side of the
Yep.
family farm. So you have that familiarity,
Yes.
and you shared that familiarity. The discussion and with firearms, was it your understanding that the husbands or people were getting you and Miss Cooper a handgun, and in particular wanted to make sure that you had a permit to carry because anybody could be in a car with a gun in it and people didn't want to get in trouble?
At the original, when we got that was the main, because there was understanding of it. But then as far as wanting to carry one myself, and later and being able to have my own at my own time, yep.
Yeah. But as far as you and Miss Cooper, the idea that you needed a permit to carry was related to the fact that, there could be a shotgun in the car or something like that out on the farm, and the husbands didn't want people to get in trouble for driving those cars. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And when you talked about guns, that was always about handguns, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was what you had and presumably what Ms. Cooper was asking for when she made the comment to Ryan, fair?
Yep.
No talk about long guns or rifles or that sort of thing, right?
We've talked about shooting as far as guns, but I mean, as far as the actual guns they gave us would have been just regular guns, handguns.
Handguns, right? Nothing further, thank you.
Yeah.
Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
You've talked about shooting different types of guns and being around guns together, correct?
Yep,
Which involves a wide array of guns, from long guns to handguns.
correct.
Fair enough to you asked how long you've known Karina and Ryan. You said from when they were married, that's over a decade ago, correct?
Correct.
So you have a pretty good window into their relationship.
Yes.
And that window into their relationship, your testimony to this jury, is she will be upset at him for many reasons, including finances.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Hotbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Stay prepared to call its next witness.
Judge, we've moved pretty quick. Our next witness was scheduled for after lunch.
Okay. We're at 11:39. I'm going to actually ask you, ladies and gentlemen, want to keep this moving, but I also, normally we go till 1:30, and you may have had plans. Are you okay if we go from now till, say, 1:15 and start 15 minutes earlier? Anybody have an issue with that? Okay, then that's what we're going to do. We'll take a lunch break now, and we'll start at 1:15. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I would just remind you of the admonition that I've given you previously. Again, high points, keep an open mind, don't talk to anybody about the case, don't let anybody talk to you about the case, don't do any type of research or investigation, and avoid any and all media accounts and social media accounts of related to these proceedings. So have a good lunch, everybody.
Okay, now I have to do math in my head again. Okay. So he said to be back at 1:15, so that's 2:15 our time? Or my time? Eastern time.
So just real quick on the record, I think we had a couple bench conferences. One preceded the on-the-record discussion about the objection and just kind of notified me of that. I think we had another one primarily just related to scheduling, and then we had another one that related to, I guess, my inquiry about whether we could postpone playing Exhibit C and move on with the witnesses. Was there, I don't recall anything else of substance that occurred. Anybody want to supplement that record or add to that record on bench conferences? Ms. Watt, anything on your end?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, I would just like to maybe ask the court what time if we're going to play this exhibit.
Well, I think that's going to be dependent on, I mean, it doesn't make sense to, I mean, we're done with the witness, we could do it right when we start. That's fine with me, but I guess that's assuming you guys can get the technology squared away. So anything else we need to do on the record?
No.
No? Okay, then we'll go off the record.
So they're coming back 15 minutes earlier than they normally do, but they're going out early, way earlier than they normally do. So why don't you just make it the normal amount of time, dude? Oh, because the witness was scheduled for after lunch, so the witness won't be here. So they have to. But you moved it up 15 minutes, so what if the witness isn't here? Okay, well, whatever. I don't know. Why? Is StreamYard messing with my sound again? Yes, it is. So 2:15. Wait. He said 1:15 their time. So it's 2:15 my time. So, yeah. So, be back at 2:15. Have a great lunch and I will see you guys then. Bye. This is going to redirect to the afternoon feed. So, it will bump you over there if you want to be over there. If not, feel free to do whatever because it's a long wait, but it's there so you won't get lost. Bye, guys. See you later.